Get Rich Slow with John Wolf. Hey, today I want to talk to you about rent increases, a little bit about cap rate, and how maximum rent increases can be determined. So, first things first, how do you determine the maximum rent increase? And that's both important for you if you're a tenant and you're worried about, geez, I just signed this lease, how much am I going to pay next year? And it's important to you if you are an investment property owner and you need to be able to accurately determine what your cap rate is now and what it is going to be in the future. Now, the state of Oregon has its own rules and other states have other rules. But in the state of Oregon, ever since Senate Bill 608, the maximum rent increase on any property in the state of Oregon is 7% plus consumer price index. And now this isn't the normal consumer price index that you would normally look up if you check online, or even the federal consumer price index. The state of Oregon actually maintains a specific consumer price index just to figure out that number. Now, what is that number for 2021? In this case, they determined that the consumer price index was 2.2, so the maximum rent increase on any property in the state of Oregon is going to be just 9.2%, or an entire 9.2%. And what do I mean by differentiating those two things? Well, it really depends on how far away you are from market rent. So just for an example, if you have a fourplex that you just bought or inherited, and you have a couple clients who've just been there for ages, and let's say the last owner didn't do nice small 3 or 5% a year incremental rent increases, but just left it the same all the time, because frankly, increasing people's rent isn't a discussion that a lot of landlords feel comfortable with, and it's certainly not something that a tenant likes. But a tenant is probably going to be much happier having their rent increased 3% a year every year than they will be if you do the maximum, do no rent increase several times in a row, and then you do the maximum. So if you have a property where, let's say, normal 2-bedroom, 2-bath in that neighborhood is $1,300 a month, and you have a property and your tenant is renting for just $800 a month, it doesn't serve you well as a landlord to do anything to try to get rid of that tenant as long as they're a decent tenant. And it definitely doesn't serve the person living there to move and have to pay market rent or move way out of the neighborhood they're accustomed to. What makes a lot more sense is for, if you have to play this catch-up game, to do the state maximum rent increase, whatever 2.9% this year is, and do that a few times until you get up to market rent. That way, it's going to be a smoother transition for both of you. Now, on the other case, let's say that same 2-bed, 2-bathroom, same $1,300 a month is normal for that neighborhood, but you're already renting it for, let's say, $1,280. If you're going to do a 2.9% rent increase at that point as the landlord, you're really asking your tenant to leave, and that's really expensive for you. And for the tenant, you're really telling the tenant you want them to leave if you suddenly increase the rent over the market rent in the neighborhood. So that's why it's so important to, when you own properties and when you're acquiring properties, to try to do small, smooth, incremental rent increases, so you're not really pushing people kind of awkwardly or uncomfortably in large steps. It's much better to do very small rent increases every year than to not do them and have to do a big increase. Likewise, when we're just talking about, is this property make sense? And I'm going to do a bigger video on this. If you are looking at a property and it is under market rent, then when you purchase it, you can analyze the cap rate knowing that you're going to be able to increase the rent only up to that maximum. And you have to realize, depending on the type of clients you have there, you might be flipping units, which is expensive, or you might be having clients leave. And that's just not something you want as a landlord. It's kind of funny. A lot of tenants who are at lower dollar rent amounts sometimes get the idea that their landlord wants to get rid of them if there's a change in ownership. Generally speaking, as long as they're good tenants, pay on time, quiet, not destroying the place, but we need to get the rents just in line to what's proper. Anyways, if you have any questions about how I approach this with my clients or how I help my own tenants, please feel free to reach out to me. It's john.wolf@htlenders.com. Have an awesome day. Bye.